improve yourself except in the most cursory way. So anything that you can think of that you think, yeah, I think this would be a better Dave Sims than the Dave Sims that I am right now and the Dave Sims that I've been. I'm always trying to do that. And that's really where most human effort is, I think, most fruitful, is what can I think of that I think would make me better, and do that and work at perpetuating that. Don't just visit it, try and live there. But as a writer, trying to understand other writers through their writing is definitely an addictive process. So probably a good thing that Cerebus wasn't 500 issues, so that I would have done a Cerebus Huckleberry Finn riff. I would have become very obsessive about, well, how do you make a raft? And what were rafts like in Missouri at that time?
Yeah, and then you'd be having me go visit my dad because he lives in Missouri, and then go to Hannibal and get all the reference you can. It'd be Strange Death of Alex Raymond with Mark Twain.
There you go. It would be just if you want to, Matt. You don't have to do it, but and then that's sharing my addiction. So that now not only am I addicted to doing this, now I've got you addicted to doing it.
Well, yeah, but that's how you got Eddie. I mean, Eddie started with okay.
Well, yeah, Eddie was the tallest poppy. You're the only one who writes to me about Glamour Puss, and the only one that writes to me about this Alex Raymond stuff. So that seemed kind of ordained. The same as I had no idea that Carson Grubaugh was reading Glamour Puss. As far as I knew, everybody was just buying Glamour Puss and putting it in a stack, and nobody was reading their copy. So you never know in those situations that you have a much bigger addiction to this than you're aware of, and you've generated a much bigger addiction in somebody else than he's aware of, and we're still slogging through that one. This is yours here, where you're writing, if I remember right, Hippie Prospect, Days of Future Past, the third story in Future Day, was drawn by Gene at the same time as Dave drew Cerebus #1. Is that you writing that, or is that Dion Turner?
No, that's me. That's me.
That's you. Okay. All right. If I remember the story correctly, Dave was visiting Gene, and they both had head colds, and they had their backs to each other as they were at their drawing boards with a 30-gallon garbage can between them. And they just kept blowing their noses and throwing the Kleenex over their shoulders. It was actually worse than that. We ran through all of the Kleenex in the house, and Gene and I both being poor as church mice, then we switched to toilet paper. Yes, I think it was toilet paper after that. So we both had toilet paper rolls that we were blowing our noses on, and then we ran out of toilet paper, or we got down to the point where it's like, no, we actually need toilet paper, so we use this toilet paper too. We can't use up all the toilet paper. So then we were using up the paper towels that they had in the house, and if you've ever blown your nose every 40 seconds or every minute and a half with paper towels, at some point you have to go and get Kleenex. This is just out of control now.
Okay, that's. I remember reading it in an old issue of Wizard, and then years ago I went, I don't need any of these. And as soon as they were gone, I'm like, oh crap, I should have gone through and there are certain pages I know I'm going to want out of this issue or that issue, and that was one of them. And I've looked, and I can't find even what issue of Wizard it was, but because for a while it was the last page was this month in comics history, and it was a December issue, was looking back on Cerebus #1, and whoever had written it had called you and you told the story. I'm like, that's amazing.
It was interesting. I mean, the fact that it stuck in my head for that long. It was one of those. If this didn't happen, if we weren't both sick as dogs for the whole week that I was up there working on Cerebus #1, I don't think I would have remembered that as vividly as I did. And I mean, there's a real comic art metaphysics aspect to that. I mean, look at the name of the story that Gene's working on. Days of Future Past. That's a real in puncture of time thing. I think it was whatever, again, over in the direction of Steve Bissett and Edgar Allan Poe and all of those guys, whatever malignancy Gene Day had inside of him and whatever malignancy I had inside of me, and we were both far more horror, science fiction, comic book fans than anybody's idea of a monotheist. I'm wondering if part of the sickness that we were experiencing was that whatever was inside of Gene was contemplating whether to move over to me or not. Having looked at this Cerebus #1, and again, in puncture of time, forward and backward in time, this seems to have a lot of temporal depth to it. At the very least, I would think, watching me drawing the cover to Cerebus #1, it would have been, I'm picking up something about 26 years here, and it seems to be glowing in the dark. And this Gene Day guy, even looking at the days of the past, the background that Gene comes from, and the future days, I'm not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing in this Cerebus thing. So maybe it's time to jump ship from Gene Day and inhabit Dave Sim instead.
Could be.
Yeah, it's all speculative. I forget who I was writing to recently and talking about. We know nothing more about the human soul than we did 6,000 years ago when we first got introduced to the concept in Scripture. We don't know what a soul is. We don't know where it is. We don't know what its physical or physical properties are, if it even has physical properties, how it moves around, if it moves around, what connection it has to us. Can it disconnect from us and reconnect to others? So that's, for me, another persuasive argument in favor of, well, if I'm going to be on a team, I want to be on God's team. And I think reading the Quran aloud and reading the Torah aloud and reading John's Gospel aloud and Revelation aloud is just tells me has more nourishment for my soul than reading other stuff. So as much as possible, I try to do that, although I do have a lot of reading that I have to do in the strange death of Alex Raymond that is research material. Apart from that, it's whatever time I think I can spare in my life, I want to read John's Gospel aloud because I think find Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft, and part of me, yes, would definitely like to reread them. I would like to reread Stephen King's It. No, if I have to weigh in the balance which one's going to help me on Judgment Day, no competition as far as I'm concerned.
I have a collected Lovecraft book I bought. I'm like, I'm going to finally read Lovecraft, and I got I think a third of the way through it, and I'm like, yeah, it's good, but it's there's one story that as I'm reading, I'm falling asleep every single night when I'm reading. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put it away and I'll read it, pick it up when I'm ready. And it's been like a year now. And no, I'm just not ready.
Right. Yeah, I would, not to make you completely paranoid, but if you're reading H.P. Lovecraft and you're falling asleep at the same part every time, that's arguably one of those, here's how we get them kind of thing. It's like, here, HP, write this and this and this and this and this and this, and here, whoever ends up reading H.P. Lovecraft, when they get to this story, it's going to hypnotically put them to sleep, and that's when all of the stuff that they've just been reading actually gets to invade their soul and inhabit them. It's, I'm not saying that I know that for a fact, but I'm saying I would worry about that. Given the subject matter, given the effect, that's one of those things that you're playing with that you maybe don't want to be playing with.
That was back in high school. My buddy and I got Lovecraft from the library, and we were reading the testimony of, I forget the name. It's a short little story. But we read it out loud, and it was hilarious. It was spooky but hilarious. And then we started reading Into the Mountains of Madness, and we got about 3 pages in and looked at each other and went, yeah, okay, we're done. We're not going to read this to each other anymore.
I want to get a good night's sleep tonight. I'm not going to get to sleep reading this stuff.
It wasn't even that. It was just the description of the creatures, and it was so pedestrian, and, it was about the size of a barrel and this, and I'm like, the actual words are very pedestrian. There's nothing creepy. There's nothing spooky. But, both of us, our hackles are raised. We're like, this is just the scariest thing in the world. And neither one of us could figure out what was freaking us out about it. We're just like, nope, we're done. Take it back to the library. Let's read something else.
Yeah. I think you kind of have to go by that because it is, that ties in with the question that we've explored here before of where do you get your ideas? It's like if you don't know where you get your ideas from, you don't know where that idea came from, and you don't know exactly how malign that idea is. That ideas do not, in and of themselves, just as ideas, have your best interests at heart. I don't think. If you're one of those people that goes, it's a story, it's just something that some guy wrote, it's, well, okay, if you're 100% confident of that, you go ahead and adopt that as your viewpoint and pursue that in whatever direction you want. Personally, I don't think that that's the case. And the longer I've been alive, and particularly since I read the Bible, which definitely always seemed like a bad idea when I was reading Stephen King and Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft. No, I really don't want to read the Bible. It's just a bunch of fairy tales, and it's just this complete scam. And it's like, well, why don't you read it first before you decide that that's what it is? And you're reading all of this stuff, and that's what's convincing you that the Bible is just a bunch of fairy tales. You might be on somebody's video game and inside the video game, and just not registering exactly how this is playing out. But, you know, God gave you free will the same as he did me. So read what you want to read, consume what you want to consume, and as the old saying goes, let the devil take the high